Ladies and gentlemen, in Tianjin, in China, a new global order is perhaps taking shape, and at the center of it are India, China and Russia. Ahead of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or the SCO Summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a delegation-level bilateral talk with his Chinese counterpart, President Xi Jinping. From the outset, this meeting has been historic. This is Prime Minister's first China visit in the last 7 years, and finally the ties between the two superpowers are stabilizing after the deadly border clashes in 2020. Bilateral relations and border issues were the core issues that were discussed in this 55-minute long meeting between the two leaders. In his opening remarks, PM Modi welcomed the restart of Kailash Mansarovar Yatra and confirmed direct flights between India and China will be restored soon. In fact, the Prime Minister emphasized on mutual trust and sensitivity, saying that interests of close to 3 billion people are linked to this cooperation. He asserted that the ties between India and China have been improving since their last meeting in Kazan, and that India is committed to taking the relation forward. President Xi Jinping also echoed similar sentiments, calling both the countries a key player on international platform. The Chinese president stressed that it is important for India and China to be friends and good neighbors, adding that the dragon and elephant must come together to preserve peace and prosperity in Asia and across the world.
Excellency, हमारे प्यारे दोस्तों मेरे स्वागत के लिए मैं आपका हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ। पिछले वर्ष कल्याण में हमारी बहुत ही सार्थक चर्चा हुई। हमारे संबंधों को एक सकारात्मक दिशा मिली। सीमा पर disengagement के बाद शांति और स्थिरता का माहौल बना हुआ है। हमारे स्पेशल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के बीच बॉर्डर मैनेजमेंट के संबंध में सहमति बनी। कैलाश मानसरोवर यात्रा फिर से शुरू हुई। दोनों देशों के बीच डायरेक्ट फ्लाइट भी फिर से शुरू की जा रही है। हमारे सहयोग से दोनों देशों के 2.8 बिलियन लोगों के बीच जुड़े हुए हैं। इससे पूरी मानवता के कल्याण का मार्ग भी प्रशस्त होगा। परस्पर विश्वास, सम्मान और संवेदनशीलता के आधार पर हम अपने संबंधों को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध हैं। एक्सेलेंसी, चीन द्वारा SCO की सफल अध्यक्षता के लिए मैं आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। एक बार फिर चीन यात्रा के निमंत्रण के लिए और आज की हमारी बैठक के लिए आपका हार्दिक धन्यवाद।
All right, let me welcome my guests on the show. Lieutenant General Raj Shukla, defense expert, joining us. He's a former army commander. Also joining us is Professor Madhav Nalapat, geopolitical analyst. I'm also joined by my colleague Rishabh, who's getting us the latest from what's been happening there, and of course what we can expect. Before I come to both of you, General Shukla as well as Professor Nalapat, let me quickly go across to Rishabh and understand from him what we're expecting. Rishabh, we just saw this crucial bilateral meeting, of course extremely important as far as the ties between the two countries are concerned and the kind of messaging that we want to send across to the West. But we're also expecting, more to happen at the SCO Summit than this bilateral. Case in point is, of course, the Prime Minister's meeting with Vladimir Putin.
Well, definitely, the next big meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, who is also in Tianjin for the SCO Summit. But, all eyes were on India-China meeting, and the bilateral delegation-level talk that has concluded just an hour ago is very clear. We heard Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we heard President Xi Jinping as well, and both the sides, the way that there is a positivity in the opening statement, showcases that how both the countries have moved forward from 2020 and the standoff that preceded the Galwan tragedy. Now that we are talking about India-China mutual respect and mutual relationship going forward, one thing is very clear, that both the countries do understand that given the geopolitics, given the weaponization of tariff, we need to come together and diversify our markets, in a way to tell Washington that things will not go as you wish. And that is something that is very, very important. And remember, Prime Minister has just visited Japan and has come to China. So, the Quad has always been seen as a democratic counterweight to China. But India right now balancing this very thin line very carefully, that we need to be seen neutral to ensure that yes, we are part of Global South, we are the advocates of Global South, we are also looking at the Western world, but also the neighborhood is very important. So from here on, how things unfold is very, very important. The next meeting, that is at around 2:30 p.m. today, is also going to be very, very important. It's going to be again India's neighborhood policy. We'll have to wait for more details on that as well. So, but it would be interesting from here on how things unfold. SCO Summit in Tianjin is actually a turning point given the geopolitics that is playing out around us.
That's right. And in fact, we're also expecting a meeting of Prime Minister Modi with the Iranian president. That's also going to be something to look out for, considering how India and Iran have deepened their relationship. Rishabh, thanks very much for joining us at the moment, getting us more from what we can expect through the day. Professor Nalapat, can I start by asking you what you were expecting? Because this is a summit that, as far as India and China are concerned, we weren't really expecting any huge announcement, but just the fact that these two countries have taken the step forward right from Kazan, where all of this began. How do you think we've proceeded?
I'd like to be an optimist and say that history will not repeat itself. The history over the past 7 decades or so of India-China quote-unquote dosti. Now, Xi Jinping has said India should be a good neighbor. Well, if that means that we should be like the Chinese side, I think that's a very sensible thing for us to do. I mean, a few years ago, Indian troops at great personal risk and sacrifice occupied the Kailash Heights, which gave them a commanding view. It's as important, frankly, as the Kargil Heights were, which again, Mr. Vajpayee said, Prime Minister Vajpayee vacated, and immediately, guess who occupied them? The Pakistani side, or the Haji Pir side, through which till to date, Pakistan is continuing to send infiltrators. India had it, but gesture of goodwill, India gave it back. Now, as far as the Kargil Heights are concerned, we basically stepped back, and we moved away from occupying those heights. Now, the point is, very frankly, if Xi Jinping is really sincere about his protestation, then I think that he should have no problem with India reoccupying the Kargil Heights, for simple reason that he does not foresee any kinetic conflict, any more kinetic conflicts between India and China. So I think we should be going back to the Kargil Heights, and very, very frankly, if I really will be very happy. Prime Minister Modi is a very shrewd person. Remember, he came from Japan, before coming to Tianjin. That's quite a statement. And I think he knows very clearly that you have to keep your powder dry, and I'm very certain that will happen. But I would only like to say that I certainly hope that these pious declarations by Xi Jinping, which of course we have heard repeatedly over time, several times. As a matter of fact, President Putin is a different situation altogether. Here, Russia has been a reliable friend of India from the days of the Soviet Union. But President Xi should now live up to his word and ensure that China is a good neighbor as well. And that means,
there are, of course, Professor Nalapat, lots of aspects to what is playing out in Tianjin at the moment. General Shukla, since we're talking about the trust in China and whether China does prove to be a good neighbor, Can I also then understand from you what you think of how the Pakistan factor will play in this entire relationship? Yes, India and China have their own standalone ties, 75 years of it this year. But just the fact that, last time around when the defense minister visited the SCO foreign ministers meet, he refused to sign the joint statement because it wasn't clearly condemning the Pahalgam terror attack and holding Pakistan responsible for it. Now, considering the fact that SCO has Pakistan as its member, there are close ties that China and Pakistan share, do you think we should be at all expecting that in the joint statement that comes out of this summit, or should we just expect the same kind of rhetorical statement that comes out of China when it comes to Pakistan?
See, I think there are larger forces at play here. And what are those larger forces? I mean, the principal issue is this Trump and the MAGA madness.
Yes.
They are energizing these new alignments. And some of these blocs which have been pretty dormant like SCO and BRICS, I think they'll get a new lease of life. Of course, without in any way, and I'll emphasize that, in any way lowering our national security guard, we must explore all opportunities, because diplomacy is, I think, as Professor Nalapat said, an optimistic exploration of possibilities. And there, you see, there are factors. I've been, for the last 25 years, we've been pretty wedded to the West, Europe and America. But I ask, are America and Europe any more the most dynamic regions in the world? I don't think so. The real growth rates are 1 to 2%. So there is greater dynamism in ASEAN, in Asia. As far as the SCO is concerned, the hard reality is that the two principal actors are India and China. Beyond India and China, the other members are not powerful enough. So unless its Sino-Indian ties are reset, SCO will really not take off. Though SCO has grown, I'm told in the initial years it accounted only for 5% of global trade. Today it's 17%. But the mend in Sino-Indian relations, I think, are critical to, the taking of SCO and so on and so forth. But why I say Pakistan is not the real factor, the real factor is Trump and MAGA madness. Yeah. It is because the world is now beginning to see this new geopolitical reality that for Trump, nothing is sacred. Everything is transactional. And Prime Minister Modi is coming from Japan. Japan and America ties are being reset because of this unending madness. No deal is final. I mean, you do a deal and then he revisits it. So that's the principal issue. And one last point I'd like to make. As far as the Sino-American relationship is concerned, it's my view, having balanced majorly to the north, with some technological upgrades, we can ensure a fail-proof deterrence. And once we've ensured a fail-proof deterrence along the LAC, the wider Sino-Indian relationship must bloom. Why should we have only 10 flights a week? It should be 100 flights a week. So if we can just secure the LAC and, convert it into fail-proof deterrence, which is very much possible, the Sino-Indian relationship can bloom. And if the relationship blooms, it will actually, deliver on this long-held promise of power shifting from the West to Asia. Okay. So there is hope, but we should not, lower our national security guard. That is critical.
Sure. We are, of course, treading with caution this entire path that we have taken with China. But Professor Nalapat, as far as, resetting ties is concerned, this is a word that is being used. Perhaps this is not resetting, is what I think. It's just recalibration of something that perhaps was going through a very bad phase. But as far as, deepening that cooperation with China is concerned, what would one mean by that? Can we trust China? The answer is no. Then how should we tread this path?
Look, I'd like to say that, General Shukla very correctly said MAGA madness. It's not MAGA madness, it is Trump madness. President Trump is dismaying his own MAGA supporters by several of his actions. And quite frankly, it's a blessing that President Trump will not come for the Quad Summit that India is hosting quite soon. Instead, he'll most probably send Vice President Vance. And Vance is a very seasoned person who understands politics, who understands India very well. He married an ethnic Indian, and they have some lovely kids. So I frankly feel that it's good for India that J.D. Vance comes. And I don't feel, for example, that the Quad is going to be weakened by the absence of Donald Trump. It's not the absence of the United States, it's the absence of Donald Trump. So I think, quite frankly, our Chinese friends need to know that we have that option with us, and that option is very much in play. And certainly we are, the Prime Minister has made, and the European Union has made a lot of progress in their ties. So have India and the UK. The Prime Minister has made a lot of progress in India-Canada ties after the absolute chaos to which Justin Trudeau brought those ties. So the reality of the situation is, as far as China is concerned, it makes sense for China to really be a good neighbor. It makes sense for China to avoid any provocation that could lead to a kinetic showdown. I mean, India is the only country after the Vietnam episode in 1979, when the Chinese really suffered, quite a humiliation there, where our soldiers have shed blood for defending their motherland. And of course, the Chinese soldiers also were made to shed blood. So I would like to say it's in the interest of China. And I've been in China multiple times. It's a very lovely country, very wonderful people, very beautiful civilization. And if President Xi lives up to his word of being a good neighbor, this would be a great thing. But, as
there's
correctly
also a
been
crucial
said,
point of people-to-people ties, Professor Nalapat, in this entire equation that we share with China. I'm going to come back to this in a bit, but let me get our viewers this breaking news that we're getting for them. This is about the high-stakes Modi-Xi meeting, ladies and gentlemen. This is what President Xi Jinping told Prime Minister Modi, that China and India are partners, they are not rivals. That is what was told by the Chinese president, that the two countries are each other's development opportunities rather than threats. Remember, she made these remarks when the two leaders met in Tianjin ahead of the SCO, the bilateral talk that we have been speaking about. Rishabh, my colleague, is getting us more on this. Rishabh, once again, the fact that the Chinese side is showing the optimism that it is towards the Indian side and calling us friends and not rivals really reflects how the two countries are placing emphasis on the relationship, as well as the kind of collective message that we want to send to the West.
Well, sure, definitely. If we talk about the message that has come in from Xi, that is also very, very important. We have been talking about how there was positivity in the opening remarks of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and now we have heard the Chinese president as well. And the Chinese president actually goes on to say that we are not rivals. We need to be together. We are friends, and elephant and dragon should go ahead together. He also goes on to say that we both are part of global south as well. So it is a quite positive message that is coming in from Beijing. Good news, but definitely with caution. Whatever we do with China needs to be done with caution, definitely. And that's the reason that, many experts who were also on our panel say that not big announcements expected, but whatever is expected should be expected with caution. So, we have had lows with China in past. Now that both the countries want to move ahead, or leaving behind all the frictions that the two countries have, all the tragedies that the two countries have had in past. But having said that, India will have to take very cautious steps from here on. Yes, India and China are not rivals, that's what she's saying, but whether India and China will not be rivals in future, that only time will tell us.
That's right, Rishabh, and we'll have to wait and watch. It's going to be, in fact, interesting how Donald Trump reacts to this entire SCO summit and this crucial bilateral meeting that has happened, and the kind of messaging that has been sent out by both Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well as President Xi Jinping. I'll have to slip into a short break. Thank you very much to both my guests, Professor Nalapat as well as General Shukla, for joining us and sharing your perspective.